to watch the replays because over the weekend I went off-road, off the grid camping. So I had no reception. It was pretty much me, a hot water system, some fire, and my dog. So yeah, I didn't watch the fight live, watched the replay, and look, from what I can tell, it was a very close fight. She conceded a head blow that caused her eye to swell up. Essentially, couldn't see out of the eye for the last couple of rounds, which, from what I can see and what I've been told, changed the fight definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a rematch, but nonetheless, I'm really excited for what Ebanie's going to do next. I think she has a lot more leverage now with Matchroom and with the UK boxing scene because they know, A, she can sell and get eyes on the sport, but also she can fight.
And I totally agree. I keep telling people I actually had that fight 4-4 at the end of 8. Like I literally thought it was kind of split for the first 8, but I do feel like the last 2 she kind of dropped. And look, have you spoken to her since?
Yeah, of course.
Is there some serious damage to that eye?
No, it's okay. A lot of it was fluid. She's been cleared by the doc, so I mean I can't say exactly when, but she definitely is already in negotiations for her next fight, which will most likely be overseas also. But on to the reffing with UK and Australian fights. I think it's quite disgusting how Australian boxers get scored by the referees overseas. When Kambosos fought Selby in his last fight, he absolutely scored Lee Selby. There was no competition. But if you were looking at the referee scorecards, they gave it a split decision. So I definitely think that Australians going over there, we get a little bit mistreated in terms of fair judging, but I guess that's the disadvantage of going away and going to the home turf of someone else. Definitely think the same thing happened with Ebanie. She was doing really well, but a lot of the times, both the referees and the commentators, they tend to highlight their hometown favourite and obviously not put the eyes on the foreigner.
And that's a case across all combat sports.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about that in MMA as well, where you know, people go into enemy territory, and it's really like you've got to put that person out, otherwise the chances of you actually picking up that fight is quite low. Not that it hasn't been close. Done, right? If it's close, exactly. And that irritates me because a lot of people also talk about with title fights, right? They always say, you know, in order to be the champion, you have to beat the champion. And I hate that. I really do. And I get where it comes from because, once again, if it's close, most judges will give it the benefit to the current champ.
Yep.
But I always say that fight should literally be 2 people fighting for the belt. Like I kind of feel like when they walk in, there is no champion. You're both fighting for that one belt, right? But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting one. How do you feel like she went? Because I know, like, obviously leading up to the event, there was a lot of smack talk about how she promotes, I guess, her image and also the landscape of women's boxing. Because obviously, her opponent wasn't a big fan of her attire for
weigh-ins
for the weigh-ins, where, you know, Ebanie is quite proud of, and look, she should, right? But she's quite proud of who she is and how she looks, and she also understands, I guess, the marketing side of it. How do you feel that all plays for her?
So I think if you look at Ebanie's objective with doing those things, do they become fruitful for her? I think the answer is yes. She gets eyes on the sport, she gets eyes on herself, opens up more platforms for herself in doing so, and that's her objective. She had more eyes probably on the weigh-in than any other athlete for the event. Does she look good? Yes. Should she use that to her advantage? Why not? I think female athletes around the world do it. Paige Van Zandt does it in the UFC. If it means they make more money than what they probably make in their fights from sponsorships and other opportunities, yeah, go for it. It's a business at the end of the day. There's a lot of politics that comes with all sorts of sports, particularly in combat sports. So I think if Ebanie can leverage her own talents and her understanding of the scene, go for it. At the end of the day, Dennis, she knows how to fight, and she put on a heck of a fight on the night.
I definitely agree. Like I was actually in a clubhouse chat while that was happening, and I was telling people to put a cheeky little bet on her. I mean, the odds were crazy. She was like a $6 kind of underdog. Like, and as I said, until that 8th round, I was like, hey, listen, we could seriously be making some money off this. Like, yeah, she she really showed. And look, that's the, and to your point, like that's the only fight I watched on that card, because obviously it was at the same time as the UFC event.
Yep.
Because so I ended up staying up, you know, watching that from 1 a.m. till 8 a.m. And as I said, quickly switching across for Ebanie's fight at 5 a.m. So I actually did watch it live. And so, yeah, to your point, I 100%, like that was the only kind of fight that really interests me on that card. But man, she's a bit of a marketing genius, especially for a maths teacher, right?
I think she did a great job. She earned a lot of respect for herself from the fight community worldwide. And I think that, look, there was rightfully so some hesitation with people watching her for this fight. It was a massive step up in competition, in the venue, in everything that was on the line. And I think she rose to the task. She showed that she has a lot of, you know, persistence, a lot of determination. She actually has a lot of skill that a lot of people probably hadn't seen in some of her fights here in Sydney. So I think all things considered, she did a great job, and I think we'll see even more and better things from her in her next fight.
And only because obviously your part of it is the strength and conditioning side of things. Like, how hard does she really hit?
Look, we've mucked around at the gym, and I've had her hit me in the rib a few times. She hits hard. She knows how to sit on her punches. She has a very good coach, and you know, like I said, I think if the eye hadn't bothered her so much in the fight, I was really interested to see how that would have gone. I think she could definitely beat Shannon.
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't even debate that. So, and I guess with her work ethic, I mean, how does she balance that? Because, I mean, I do see she's very, you know, active on the socials. She's very active in all the media kind of stuff. As I said, she's a maths teacher. Then she's also got, I guess, training with yourself and I think the Bondi Boxing Club and stuff like that. But like, when it comes to like, I guess her day in, day out, what's her kind of work ethic like?
So, to sacrifice for boxing, she pulled away from being a full-time teacher. So she's more part-time casual now to put more eggs in the basket of her boxing. Her head coach is Arnell at a Boratilla boxing gym. So she spends a lot of time with him, does a lot of rounds there. But as you know, Dennis, the fight scene in Sydney is quite small. So it requires athletes to travel around and spar with different athletes, different gyms. So she obviously does a lot of that also.